Welcome to Men-Tal-k 2. Today, Tuesday, March 11th. Our guest today, and you'll be fortunate because he's the first. He's the first on the podcast where we do video presentation. He's the first today. He's a gentleman who has a lot of experience in community work. I met him 15 years ago in another disposition while I was counselor. He worked with young men from all ages through his organization, and he is helping men become, as what Men-Tal-k wants to do, the best version of themselves. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Mr. Brian Jones,
Thank you very
chairman
much
of the
for having me
Loveuntil
here.
Foundation.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us, Mr. Jones.
Yes, it's a pleasure.
So tell us, Mr. Jones, tell the audience, I know about you, but you tell them about yourself and the work you do and the foundation.
All right. First of all, let me place a disclaimer. I still see you as Counselor Akil Odin. I see you as nothing else. And so if I keep calling you Counselor, anybody who's watching on, this is not a con or fraud. It's just that how I see you.
Okay.
I worked all my life. I'm a retired vice president of insurance, of marketing. I worked all my life in insurance from 1972 to about 6 years ago. And then I branched out. Well, I was involved with Loveuntil Foundation even before retirement, because Loveuntil Foundation in 2025 will be 20 years in existence. So for
20.
about 30, that's right, this year. So for about 13 years, I was chairman of Loveuntil, but full-time employed. Now I am not full-time employed. I am involved in Loveuntil quite much more frequently.
So you're full-time in
Loveuntil,
Loveuntil.
yes, you could say that. Loveuntil Foundation provides services of a preschool. We are in Upper Church Street, Loveuntil, off the Eastern Main Road, Loveuntil. And we provide services not only to the environs. We don't have any border issues in our provision of services. So we provide services to everywhere in the environment, whether it be Beecham, Loveuntil Hill, all around. And we do things like hampers. We have a soup kitchen every week. We have a preschool, a kindergarten school. We have several youth programs sponsored by Republic Bank, CGA, and Angostura. We have done work with thousands of young people in schools, secondary schools in our area and out of our area, as far as Mukarapo Senior Secondary and Junior Secondary and Tigo Martin Secondary. And we used to have a bakery. It's no longer in existence, but we plan to restart baking and giving away the bread before the year's out. We distribute clothes. Counselor, we have a lot of services we provide to thousands of people in order for people to have a better chance in life. And we do a lot of vocational training. This evening, Tuesday the 11th, we start a basic electrical program on Zoom at 5:30 p.m. We have done plumbing, many courses, certificate courses on Zoom, so that people could become better able to do stuff on their own more than to become that profession. So yeah, Loveuntil also owns Rafa House, a children's home in Dabadi, and I used to be the chairman of Casa de Corazon up to the end of December 2024. It's a children's home in Sandy Grande. So I live a very, very hectic social work life.
I'm not going to say that. So within all that, where do you find time for yourself?
Oh, I have a lot of time for myself because I tell you, when I come
Retired.
home, when I come home in the evening, except for like facilitating someone like you who's doing excellent work, I will be in my bed right now watching Hallmark movie. Go figure it. My wife hates it and I love it.
So, what made you get into this type of work? Because you said you were vice president of retired vice president of marketing in an insurance company.
Right.
And yes, insurance helps people. However, you have gone into a different aspect of helping people through this social work aspect.
Right.
What encouraged you or what motivated you to get into this type of work, especially in
Well,
the area where you are?
right. In the area I am,
No, because you said the Loveuntil Foundation is in Loveuntil, started
right,
Loveuntil, right?
right,
So, and 20 years celebrated this year.
right.
You have been there for, I know it's 13 years. So since then, and you may be there from before.
I was the first and only chairman so far.
You see, so what inspired the Love Until for you to be involved at that level, Love Until Foundation?
Loveuntil Foundation was set up 20 years ago by the Loveuntil Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is obliquely opposite the foundation. The
Mm-hmm.
foundation is a two-story building. And what inspired us, I am just one of many who inspired that we had to do more for the community than just inviting people to church. We felt that the church should be a beacon, forget religion. The church should be a conduit whereby people on a daily basis could get help. Not
Right?
God, help.
Help.
And so that was the vision. I loved it because I have a passion for the less fortunate. Because of my childhood, I grew up with a single parent, my mom, and my dad migrated, and the arrangement was she was to go up with him to England with us. And because of poor soul, he was an alcoholic, she felt it was ill-advised to follow him. So she broke the agreement and never went, and he never looked back. So we grew up extremely poor. And she and I lived alone most of our lives. And I could tell you, counselor, I know what it is to get up in the morning and have nothing, nothing, nothing to eat, and have no hope of getting anything. I know hunger. Um, uh, front view of hunger. And I could give you so many stories. I find being hungry is one of the most dehumanizing things that there is. And so, with that background, I always pledge that I will do, if I had children, I will do anything necessary to make sure my children never went hungry like I did. And God
So
bless me.
let's stick right there, right?
Yeah,
So growing up, your trial, you had a big trial where single parent and you said you know hunger to that
right.
great extent. And you said you don't want your children. How did you overcome? Tell me how that shaped you into the man you are today. How
Well,
did what motivated you out of that? Because there are persons, there are men out there who may be going through similar
right.
situations and feel like giving up. Why
Right.
didn't you give up? Share that
Well,
story.
I, 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 I always had a desire to keep going. They never built into me the capacity to give up. I don't know what is giving up. So that I always felt from a young age that the key to my success had to be study. I had nothing else. And my mother pushed me. And I felt the key to my success was education. And she stuck with me. I went through primary school. My brother, who was 7 years old, I had two brothers. One died, and the other one, who was 7 years older, was able to go and live with my aunt in the United States, work and send back money. And things started to improve when he started to work in the United States and send back money. And I kept going. I was able to uh, pass my GCE in those days. Young people know CXE. In my time was GCE. And as I reached getting my O levels, age 16, I had to go out and work. And at age 16 in 1972, I started to work at Colonial Life. People used to laugh in Colonial Life, want to know why Colonial Life hiring child labor. I was 16 years of age. But I felt when I got to understand at age 16, I didn't know what I wanted, but I felt if I insurance, I will study and I will become, quote unquote, a big boy. Because in those days, you could study in insurance, qualify, and you'll get promoted. And I got 4 professional degrees
Four
studying
professional degrees, you said?
4 professional degrees. I have a lot of titles behind my name. Kept going, and I got a job as a manager in British American at the time, and I continued, and I just kept getting promoted and promoted, and the rest
So
is history.
the rest is history. No Lawrence, not Lawrence. Cyril Dupree, when he started Click, his values were give a man service, give a man value, give a man service, and he would support you. So
Right.
you are living proof of that then.
I was hired by Lawrence Dupree. I worked directly with Lawrence Dupree for a while.
So Clico gave you that at 16 years old. The
Yes,
mindset was with insurance, you have no choice but to study to make it.
that's right. And I studied for about 10 years, day in day out, passing those 4 professional degrees could have comprised about at least more than 20 courses. So I was constantly studying, sacrificing. Well, friends were liming and enjoying themselves. I studied, but I knew as I passed exam after exam, life would get better, and it did. And my children were the beneficiaries of a better life through hard work and study.
So I know that's one key thing. You knew you didn't want this life for your children when you grow up.
Exactly.
And you know through hard work and studies and your mother encouraged you to study also.
Exactly.
She may not have been able to give you much financially, but that education background, she was behind you with that.
Exactly. But
And you
I'd like to say something, Counselor.
sure
Dr. Eric Williams said, we're not talking politics, we're talking something that was said. Dr. Eric Williams says, the future and the young people may not vaguely know who he is. The future of Trinidad and Tobago lies in the book bags of
of
the
the
young people.
of the children. And that's true to date, you know. And while I say that, what is in the book bags now? That's why you may see plenty of the violence in schools, the fighting, etc. Just like the saying is, it takes a community to raise a child.
You're right.
The community is still raising the child today,
Right.
but it's all
That's right.
right. So all the sayings of the past still holds true today. It's just how.
Yes, that's
And
right.
I like I like how you were able to motivate yourself and come out and you said to the persons listening, you must want something better for yourself.
That's right.
And you wanted something better for yourself, and it went beyond yourself. It went to if you have children, and when you have children, you want something better for them. So you
Exactly.
started developing yourself from young.
That's right.
And that was the background of how you got into the love until and the social work
Right.
because
Because
you know what it is to go without food.
that's right.
And many of the trials that you see persons come with, you may have lived it.
That's right.
So it held a special place in your heart.
That's right. I could empathize. And the people I grew up with who in the Loveuntil Adventist Church had similar backgrounds. They came out of poverty, but they were prepared to sacrifice because the first manager of Loveuntil was a young lady who grew up extremely poor right there in Robert Street in Loveuntil.
Mhm.
But now she's also retired. She also has she has, unlike me, I have professional degree. She had the real deal. She has double masters. So the people in my era in the church had the vision, grew up poor, and we got together and did this. And I will tell you something. staying poor is a choice. You could be born poor, you could grow up poor, but Trinidad has enough opportunities that you don't have to stay poor. Now,
Great.
that is a whole debate in itself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
We ain't going into that. I just saying that
You
I
lived
used,
it. You
that's,
lived it.
I lived
And
it.
you know other persons who lived exactly what you said also.
That's right.
You would have dealt, and you have and will continue to deal with men under what you do.
Right.
And Love Until, they said, offer a variety of services, and it wouldn't just be feeding, but feeding will be a major part of it because, as you said, you think that someone going hunger is one of the most inhumane. Hungry is one of the most inhumane things possible.
Right.
Apart from that, what have you seen, or how are you? Tell us under the Loveuntil Foundation and your years of service to community. How have that impacted the men that you serve, the young men that you serve?
I'll give you an example. We have programs now, mainly mixed men or women, young girls and young boys, where Angostura, as an example, has a program called Link to Learn that they sponsor, where young people, we started off with 12, from Form 3, were given the opportunity to get lessons, books, laptops, transport money. These are people selected out of our area and young people who normally wouldn't have a chance or would not be able to afford all the necessary requirements for school, and in some instances will drop out. But these chosen young people, and we have other programs with similar background, were able to get the funding, to get the requisites, whether it's books, laptop, lessons, whatever. And all of them graduated successfully out of fifth form into other aspects going forward.
Nice.
And the program continues for some of them going forward. We have a group, two teens, twins, in a particular area. I won't call the area. Under a very, very difficult circumstance, father was murdered. The aunt pick up the mantle, not the mother, the aunt, fight with them. And those boys coming out of that program are now doing the degree at Roy Tech.
That's
So
very
that, so
good.
that, so that we have game-changing programs for young people. CGA has one. Republic Bank, that's a whole different story. Their investment in Loveuntil has been they are the most invested in Loveuntil. And they, through their sponsorship, we have a power of one program. I can't start to tell you about Republic. That's another story where thousands of young people over the years have been helped. United Way are funding us also. We have been able to craft programs to see, to be measurable, where you see someone move from stage to stage to stage, see their progression, and see the success story they turn out to be. So this is not just throwing paint on a wall and hoping it stick. This is individual following up, support to see a cadre of young people ended up very successful, educational wise, and the choice thereafter is theirs.
That's excellent news.
Yeah,
That and that's what I strongly agree with the future of our nation in the bags of our children. As councillor, I took up that mantle personally, where I had a very intimate relationship with the schools within my district,
right.
and and you were part of some of the stuff we did, the Lions Club, etc. And one of the similar thing I did, I got some businesses involved where we took one or two children from the school who we saw potential in, but if left under their own circumstance, would have fallen through the cracks.
Right.
And today, I remember even one of the things I did at the time was I used to do the graduation of my standard fives. And with the graduation, we used to go on field trips and take the children out of the area. So we went to Pitch Lake one time, and the Pitch Lake, I like carrying them to the Pitch Lake because it's ours, it's a natural wonder, and many persons would have, under the circumstances, will never visit the Pitch Lake.
Right.
And they enjoyed it. Up to late last year, I'm no longer a counselor, but I went to do a transaction, I think it's the police station, right, to do a certificate of character. And a lady, she came up to me after I MTS worker, she came, she said, excuse me, you have a brother called Akil Odin, or are you Akil Odin? I say, yes. I said, that's me. And she got ecstatic. She said, you don't remember me? I said, no. She said, I am so-and-so mother, I mean aunt, and you did a graduation for them in the school, and you gave him a trophy, and he held on to that trophy, and he said, the trophy and the book. She said, that book you give them, the book was, I gave him that was Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Right.
I gave them
I
that
know that book.
right? Because I believe it helped their mindset. And she said, he's doing excellently. Because of that, he didn't want to, she said he didn't want to let you down or let himself down, because the graduation, he felt that when that trophy he got for most outstanding, that inspired him, and he came out with all 5 CXC passes that he did.
Excellent.
And he's in university now and going through. And that, the stories that you said are measurable.
Right.
You mentioned the twin that the aunt took the mantle of the help. Father was killed. Grief is a serious thing among men in
Right.
terms of how we deal with it.
Right.
How, and I know the Loveuntil have a session this week
Yes.
coming up dealing with grief. However, what I'd ask is, how have you seen grief impacted your ability to reach persons, to reach the young men in the community? Because we see the women cry, we see the young ladies cry, but the men, we very rarely see them cry, and they lash out in a different way. How has that affected your ability to make an impact in the community?
Well, the amount of young men who have been murdered. There's a school that you and I know well, where the principal is female. We talked about that school. It's in the Loveuntil area, where the teachers counted, I think about 10 or something students in that school got killed.
Yep.
Right? I know you know this school. And young men react very differently in grief than women. I lived that. Because 4 years ago, my son, my wife and my son died suddenly. And she will openly cry up to today for his loss. Me, I cry yes. But I more internalize it and keep it in, and, based on this false notion that men must be strong. Nonsense. Men must be strong, yes, but men must be real. We have a relative right now, prominent person in society. He lost his brother and mother within a very short period last year. And he is trying to reflect how he feels rather than just stay there and keep it in. But there are a lot of men, young men, who have lost their dads, and they're just angry because they haven't been schooled to reflect how they feel. And so they're angry, they don't vent, and it's a real problem, this grief thing, because the grief is widespread. In our community is widespread, very widespread. And that's a reach stage in areas, and it's all over the country. It's a false notion is Loveuntil alone. Reach a stage in this country. People get killed, they pass, they see the body on the ground. If the body is covered or uncovered, they say, oh, that was so and so boy. Bike tire tell he stop in trouble. And they go their way and it's nothing. But to the immediate family is a big, big thing. But to regular people, we've become numb. So grief and the lack of proper supervision of grief of young men is a real problem. So we are having the church is having this Wednesday night, a young lady come and talk about grief. I have had a lot of requests for grief counseling and discussion on grief because there has been a lot of deaths of people who we associate with in our programs who have lost loved ones, mostly young men, and they're hurting.
Yeah, because grief don't leave you just like that. And especially grief through death of a loved one.
Yeah.
Right? And during COVID alone, for example, I knew persons who died from COVID, approximately 90 persons who would have died from COVID.
Wow.
And guys know of would have interacted with at some point in time. And personal interaction numerous times, about 50% of those. Right? And when you hear this one die and you feel it.
Yeah.
However, even greater than that, we could just use the COVID period. I have lost from 2020 to last year. 13. About 13 members of my family.
Mercy Jesus.
It was basically 3 a year.
Wow.
And family and close friends. So it's about 12 family and one very good friend. And my sister, she would have lost a little more when I was 13. She lost 2 friends along the way and a student via suicide. How I would have processed it is different. They would cry and sometimes they cried, but sometimes, as I said, we as men, we internalize.
Yeah.
We hold it in.
Yeah.
Because we believe there's no avenue. Many men believe, what's the sense? And who you're crying to. But not who you're crying to. Sometimes you just need to cry to let it out.
Yes.
Even if it's in your silent space. Because how much grief you could take? How much death you could actually take and say you're good?
Yeah.
Because with us, it was, sometimes I lost a cousin. So let me say we lost a cousin this year. I'm going to tell you how it went. In December, the following December, her mother died. And within 5 months, her father died.
Mercy. Yeah.
Then last year, cousin died. And within 3 to 4 months, if so long, her sister died. Then an aunt, before that, an aunt and my grandfather. And my family, yes, we are big, or we were big based on that, but we were very close.
Right.
Right, so a death is not like, there's a distant aunt or whatever. Everything is right there. And there's not more than father. I had some scares with my mom too in the hospital late last year. Scare around Christmas, right before Christmas. And before that was some years ago. But I still have both parents. What about those?
Thank God. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The young men who would have lost a parent made through gun violence or even natural causes. And when you're young, even older, I have a saying I tell persons, men are not taught to deal with grief.
That's right.
Women are. Because as a young lady, they say cry. We are not told to cry.
Right.
So I usually tell persons, you have a child. When the child reach about 2 years old, buy them a dog. A dog life is about 10 to 15 years. By them, a dog with 10 to 15 years lifespan, the dog grew up with them. So in their teenage years, sorry, when the dog died, they'll know how to process grief
Right.
because they may not lose a mother, a father, or a grandparent who's close to them within that period of time. So when they reach 20, 25, 24, that's why you're hearing about these murder suicides, especially the murdering the ex who left them, processing the grief. It's how we process the grief. If you were never hurt in that way before and deal with grief before that, how are you gonna process it at 25 years old,
Yeah, that's right.
20 years old? So we were not taught how to deal with it. So that's why I asked the question because it's a serious thing. We have many persons walking around angry
Yeah.
and have revenge in their mind because of what
Yes.
happened to their loved one.
Yes. Yes. And the young people have not been taught how to deal with conflict because children learn what they see, and conflict resolution has become just through violence. When I grew up many years ago, conflict was resolved through discussion and dialogue or intervention of an adult. Now conflict is resolved through who could kill who first. It's
Yeah.
madness. It's madness. And so we having this month we are doing grief this Wednesday night. Next month, I talked to a clinical psychologist today. We are going to talk about teenage suicide. A
Yeah.
Wednesday night next month, we're going to deal with teenage. Let me just give you a story. We were having in my club, I'm a member of a Rotary Club, just an informal discussion at lunch. We have a lunch every Wednesday. And we were having an informal discussion about suicide. 20 something of us, only to realize everybody in the room had a teenager who was a relative, had killed him or herself,
Ooh.
or they knew of someone. The teenage suicide in this country is high. And I saw some group today advocating for interventions. So I spoke to this psychologist, and she has agreed to do a night in March, in April, a Wednesday night, how to cope, how to prevent suicide, and we're reaching out to parents, how to identify, signs, and how to treat with young people who have feelings of suicide. And so we are dealing with that because not only murders but suicides are high and suicide rate because the young people who have much more than I would have had in my time are under much more pressure than I would have gotten growing up. So it's if all of us then, counselor, do our part for one, might be 10 and 15 and 20, but one here,
It's
one
just
here,
one.
just one. That one could then become an advocate to save another one. And the domino effect of that first one could be really good. So we have to fight for them. We can't give up. And we have to love them.
Last year, before I started this podcast, I did some research and suicide among men in the Caribbean, Trinidad and Tobago, the highest rate was men over 60. And it
Wow.
was shocking. You would say,
For
why
sure.
men over 60? But men over 60 who supposed to already live their life and retired committing suicide.
Mm.
Then you were seeing a sharp rise in teenage suicides.
Hmm.
And then around that time, we had two back to back from schools. And now, as you said, it keeps on rising. So we need there shows that something is wrong.
Yes.
And many of these suicide victims are male. So it's showing something is wrong. So
Hmm.
we need to find a way to get in there. And I'm trying to work with different persons through this avenue to offer counseling. First, at some point in time, to go in the schools to tackle that anger, the hurt, the grief, whatever it may be, because we need to get to the bottom of it. Because if we continue like this, what future we have?
Yeah.
If the children are supposed to be our future,
Yeah.
we will have no future. So we need to find a way to to touch those lives, because to commit suicide is, people that say it's weak. It's not a weak thing to take your own life, to think about it. There, at some point in time, there it may cross our minds, but to
Right.
actually go through it, especially as a older man, you would have thought as males, to for that to be the most logical thing we decide to do, have to mean that we think about everything else, and nowhere nothing else seems the best fit.
Yeah, that's right.
And at the children level, sometimes they are not fully developed, but as the male is still thinking that's the best suitable option too.
Yeah.
So we need to be able to go in there, and that session on grief on Wednesday, I'll try to sit in, because they may share ways of helping persons cope with grief.
That's
And
right.
as a friend, colleague, co-worker, associate, we may see someone going through a difficult situation and maybe be able to help them.
That's right.
Right. And I'd really admire the work, and thankful to the work that you have been doing through the foundation. We partnered together before with some stuff, and you're still going on. And I saw that COVID made everyone into an internet guru now,
Yeah, that's right.
because all these things we're doing, you have a lot of online stuff now. Some Sundays, Wednesdays, Mondays, different days. So anyone who wants to be involved can be involved. So you all doing a homework center now.
Yeah, we started yesterday, but that's
Yes.
physical. That's
That's
physical.
physical, that's online. Okay.
No,
So the
that's
homework.
online. Yeah.
And then you have a lot of Zoom programs where it lasts an hour, maybe two, if so long. But
Yeah.
it's for persons, and you have some targeting men, women, and then mix. So
Yeah.
you are very targeted in what you do.
Yeah. But
And
we have
the
a
work
monthly men's forum on Zoom
on Zoom.
last Sunday of each one. We're not having one this month because we're going into a different mode from our church. But
Right.
normally every last Sunday. But this Sunday here, we're having a men's breakfast for men of our church and another adjoining church, where we have no agenda. We just getting together as men once a quarter, where we eating together. Men, we love rebellion.
Yeah, yeah.
What
And
I'm
from
talking
that eating together, all sort of
Yeah,
discussion will happen.
we have a man who say no, he ain't coming to the breakfast, even though he had to pay $50, right? And what we plan to do is to just create a safe space for men to start bonding and eventually start sharing. But that sharing must be done because men comfortable that when we share, no wife, no woman, no girlfriend must know what we share,
Yeah,
right?
because we're in a safe space.
We're in a safe space. So we have to build that trust first. And the only thing on the agenda is to plan for a Mother's Day program for the women. Other than that, we just lime in. After we belly full and we can't move, we
All
just
talk.
lime in, old talk.
And from that, men they will get comfortable. If you do this every month, every 2 months, it's a comfort level. So someone who may be going through something at some point in time may come and say, Mr. Jones, I could talk to you for a minute. X, Y, Z is the case, and you could be able to save that one life, which will
One
have a
family.
ripple effect down the road.
That's right.
So, Mr. Jones, I want to thank you very much
You're
for
so
taking
welcome.
the time out of your busy schedule to come and share with us the Loveuntil Foundation. Not before even the Loveuntil, you by yourself, with how you grew up and where you are now, that's a testimony for others to follow.
Yeah,
Because there are persons who may be going through the same thing or similar to what you have been through. And the motivation that you give, you just want to do better.
that's right.
You wanted to become the best that Brian Jones could have become, and you knew from young the situation you were in would not allow that.
That's right.
So you put your foot down. You found the avenue, legal way. It took you 10 years to come out with 4 professional degrees. However, under the journey, you were able to see and reap the benefits of what you did, where you retired as a vice president of marketing in the insurance company, in an insurance company. And that in itself shows that hard work actually pays off
Exactly.
with dedication. So you you are, and when many persons look at you now, chairman of Loveuntil, this and that and the other, but this that part of your story they didn't know.
That's right.
And I thank you for sharing with us because it will help someone who will view this podcast to say, hey, if he could do it, so can
Exactly.
I.
That's right.
If he can do it, so can I. Because it's not just for you, a single parent household. You are two, but your mother saw that, hey, this was happening here. It may not be the best. So she stayed here and worked it out with you all. And today, you are the proud product of the work that you put in. So I just want to say thank you very much.
You're so
And
welcome.
sure we continue to keep in touch.
All right. Thanks again. Have
Thank
a
you
good
very
night.
much.
Have a
Same
good
to
day.
you.
Yes.
Same to
Okay.
you.
Bye bye.
And this was Men Talk 2 with Akhil Odin. Do have a good day. So that was Brian Jones, the chairman of the Loveuntil Foundation. He joined us on Men Talk 2. So I look forward to meeting with you all again next week. Same time, same place. Do have a great day.